By video conference. Tonight's meeting is available to the public on Channel 8 and through live streaming on Broomfield's website. Public participation is encouraged by calling 855-695-3744 and pressing *3 to be placed in the queue for comment. Please note, if you would like to speak on more than one item on tonight's agenda, you will need to press *3 each time to be placed back in the queue for comment. Public comment will be taken on agenda items following staff presentations. Screeners will ask callers for their first and last name, neighborhood, and the agenda item the caller would like to comment on. Please call several minutes before the agenda item, and don't forget to press *3 to ensure that you are in the queue for comment. Public comment will also be taken during the public comment section for topics not on tonight's agenda. All public comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Again, the number is 855-695-3744 and press *3 to be placed in the queue. The City Council meeting is now called to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Anderson,
Here.
Castriata,
Here.
Groom, Hinkle,
Here.
Jezierski,
Here.
Law Evans,
Here.
Lim,
Here.
Lindstedt,
Here.
Schaff,
Here.
Tessier.
She just sent an email saying that she's having login issues. So,
I'm sending her the another link right now.
okay. So let's go ahead and a quorum is present. Let's go ahead and start by saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In an effort to keep the order for tonight's meeting, I ask council to please utilize the video conferencing tools to raise their hand for comment or when making a motion or a second. I will call on the first hand raised to state the motion, and the second hand will make the second. I ask council members to limit their comments to 5 minutes. Abby will be assisting with the timekeeping and will provide council members with a notification via video conferencing chat when 1 minute remains. Please ensure that you are on mute when not speaking. If a council member needs to leave the meeting, please inform me before doing so. We will plan on a 10-minute break at 8 p.m. We will begin with council's review and approval of the evening's agenda. Council may add or remove from the consent agenda, or council may revise the order of business of the meeting. Does any member of the council have any additional comments or questions regarding this evening's agenda? Councilmember Schaaf.
Thank you, Mayor. I hadn't seen a report or any feedback about how the attorney search is going. So I would like to request a executive session take place after the meeting tonight concerning our city and county attorney search.
Well, I'm not sure we can do that, Sean, because we need to give notice, I think, for that notice. You're about to get an email. You will get an email on the status of that. There was some developments today. I did not get a chance to review that email until like 20 minutes ago. So you will get a full update on the email, and I'll say at the point that we followed your advice in your email. So I think you'll be pleased with what the report has.
Okay, so perfect. So we don't need a executive session tonight.
No. Once again, you'll get a memo. I don't know if you'll get it tonight or tomorrow morning, but you'll get a memo tonight that summarizes the discussion Guyleen and I had. And once again, we followed your template. So
perfect. Sounds great. Thank you so much.
There you go. And so with that stated, any other comments or questions on the agenda? There are no petitions and communications this evening, so we will move to public comment. I haven't even got into host view yet. I am discombobulated. we'll go to
There's no
public
one.
comments.
There's no one in the queue,
Okay.
Mayor.
We'll go to public comment. This is an opportunity for the public to comment on matters other than this evening's agenda. To be placed on the queue for comment, please call 855-695-3744 and press *3. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes. And once again, there's nobody in the screening process either. So council's community and event updates are next. Does any member of council have an update this evening? Councilmember Lamb.
This afternoon, This afternoon, I testified at the PUC in support of Excel's transportation electrification plan, which proposes $102 million over 3 years to support the entire system across the state for the EV support. So this was in support of our own Broomfield GHG goals, our inventory showed that on-road transportation sector was the largest single sector contributor to our GHG's inventory. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other reports from council members? Councilmember Schaaf?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to let everybody know we were supposed to have our public art meeting last night, but that because of Veterans Day was moved to next week. And then just a heads up that we will not be having a December meeting. And so we will, after next week, we won't have a meeting until January. So just wanted to let council know that.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or reports from council members? So then we'll go to, interesting enough, there are no items. I guess we covered all the simple things last Tuesday. There are no items on the consent agenda this evening for council's review, and no business tonight before the Board of Social Services and the Board of Health. Our only item this evening for the Broomfield Housing Authority is an update from the Housing Advisory Committee and recommendations to the Housing Needs Assessment Action Plan. The meeting of the Broomfield Housing Authority is called to order. I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Anderson,
Here.
Castriata,
Here.
Groom, Hinkle,
Here.
Jezierski,
Here.
Law Evans,
Here.
Lim,
Here.
Lindstedt,
Here.
Schaaf,
Here.
Tessier.
Here.
Quorum is present. In fact, that was Amy Collins just now. She's updated the so we'll get it out this evening. So the authority has a copy of the agenda memorandum, which staff will summarize.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Good evening. Cheryl St. Clair, Manager of Housing, is going to walk us through, excuse me, this item. Cheryl?
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. I am Cheryl St. Clair, Housing Program Manager, and I'm here to introduce the Housing Advisory Committee update for our City Council this evening. The goal of this, we can go to the next slide, I'm sorry, thank you. List of the committee members in case you haven't seen it lately, with our new members that joined in 2020 and of course our City Council representatives. Next slide, please. So the goal tonight is to review sort of where the Housing Advisory Committee stands and the action plan goals from 2019 and 2020, and give you an update of the accomplishments through those goals, and then look at the next steps and their plans for 2021. The Housing Advisory Committee is looking forward to getting any comments or direction that council would like us to add to their plan. And so that's our goal for the evening. So looking at the action plan goals, the first three, the short-term goals of the plan were to look at zoning and specifically to address accessory dwelling units and similar housing types and make a plan to allow those in Broomfield. The second short-term goal was to develop some incentives for residential developments to provide different options, housing types, and to work with developers to provide additional affordable housing. And then the third short-term goal was to really look at the communication within the community and to expand our outreach and find different ways to message and reach out to the community. So to talk about the accomplishments and the next steps, I would like to introduce Tony Castle, the chairman of the Housing Advisory Committee, as well as Bob Monroe, the vice chair, and they're going to walk through the next few slides with you. So we can go to the next slide, and Tony, I'll turn it over to you. Maybe Tony hasn't been able to join in. Well,
He's there and he's unmuted. Tony, can you hear us? They're on and active. Cheryl, you want to continue and we'll help facilitate their joining?
Okay, absolutely. So the accomplishments on those first short-term goals. The ADU ordinance was researched and presented to council and adopted. There was an inclusionary housing ordinance also researched and presented to council and adopted, which required our new development communities to include a percentage of affordable housing or to pay a cash in lieu to our housing development fund. We supported and approved funding for Anchor House, which was the 8-unit home sponsored by the Lutheran Church of Hope for youth. And we also did funding approval in support of 3 Flatirons Habitat for Humanity projects. The committee also brought to City Council standard fee reductions for permanently affordable housing units, and we got that approval. City Council also created the Housing Development Fund and seeded that with the $1 million. And that, of course, is where the additional payments from developers are going to come into effect. We've actually received one of those, and I think Tony will talk about that further. And of course, we have all of the ongoing support to the community with continuing our home rehab programs, looking at other initiatives within the city, developing a handbook to help the developers. We supported 2 tax credit, low-income housing tax credit projects that were submitted to CHAFA. Academy Place and Northwest Apartments. Academy Place did receive their award of credits, and they're looking forward to inviting council to a groundbreaking here in the next month or 2. And then with communication, we had a virtual town hall just recently last month regarding Broomfield's housing options. So next slide, and I think Tony has joined us, so I will have him talk about these projects that we've looked at. So it looks like Tony's having issues. I'm going to keep going here. Tony's up in Maine right now, so that could be part of what's going on with his connection. I'm not sure. So I wanted to point out, and the committee wanted to point out that since they started, These are all the projects that they have met with developers, negotiated some agreements, and then made recommendations to City Council regarding whether it would be design or the affordable housing component. So the committee has been busy over the last couple years. Next slide, please. So out of all those reviews, the affordable units that have been committed are outlined here. And that is approximately 1,400 units that we have brought to a City Council that are committed now and are moving forward with their plans. So 172 of those are in the smaller sections and smaller increments throughout some of those projects. And then an additional 1,059 within the baseline community for, it's actually 1,231 units. And then the bottom part of that slide is an additional 153 to 176 that are in early conceptual stage that council has not seen yet, but are working with the Housing Advisory Committee. So that's where we see that approximate 1,400 units. Next slide, please. So the inclusionary housing ordinance, of course, was set up to allow for a cash in lieu or require a cash in lieu with the developers could opt into actually providing the units instead of paying a cash in lieu. So we're about half and half with those choices with the developers. And these are the committed projects that are providing the cash in lieu. The Brownstones and Palisade, we actually have received the $200,000 in cash in lieu payment from them. The rest of them there show that they are committed. Vive Via Vara is providing both cash and infrastructure costs for the Northwest Apartments, which is our other low-income housing tax credit project that will be going into CHAPA for an award. Steadfast and Arista, Wadsworth Apartments, those are committed, and we expect to have that funding received in 2021. Flatirons Vista Plaza, we do not know, we don't have a timing on that one yet to provide to you. So there's 4 other projects that I think 3 of them City Council has seen preliminarily, and those are also proposing cash in lieu. And so we're looking at, right now we have $6.2 million committed to the development fund. 4.2 of that proposed to come in 2021. And the rest is, of course, like I mentioned, in the early development stages. So out of that money, we have committed, City Council has committed $600,000 in loans. $500,000 of that was to Flatirons Habitat for Humanity for the Discovery Townhome project. And that's a loan as each townhome is built and sold, we will receive 1/12 of that loan back. The other $100,000 was for Anchor House, and that was in the form of a loan guarantee so that they could secure and begin their groundbreaking, which they already have. So that guarantee should be released to us shortly, and that $100,000 then uncommitted, and we can put it back into our available funding pot. Next slide, please. All right, if Bob Monroe is on, we'll see if Bob could get connected. He was going to talk to you about the goals and the next
I'm
steps.
here, Cheryl.
Great, Bob. I'm going to turn it over to you.
I'll take it. You got to know it's killing Tony that he can't do his section on this, but Mayor, council members, thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to you tonight. I think one thing I do want to do is just quickly acknowledge some folks that you saw all of the accomplishments that we just have undertaken the last few years. I really want to call out and thank some folks involved in all of this. First and foremost, I really want to acknowledge Sharon Tessier and Liz Law Evans as our council liaisons and council members. They did a terrific job, and I hope that they know our appreciation for them. Secondly, I want to acknowledge some of the Housing Advisory Committee members that just cycled off here recently. Allison Daly, Daisy Neidig, Jack Devereaux, and a special acknowledgement for Dave Manley. Dave really spearheaded the ADU proposal and so forth, and I think that's just really want to acknowledge him. And lastly, of course, we just can't thank Cheryl and Kevin as the staff people for us enough. So thank you all, and just wanted to let you know that. I think what we're looking at in terms of the next goals and next steps is the list you see here, but really we're going to continue our implementation of the inclusionary housing ordinance, which means talking to developers, but we're going to expand it a little bit and try and really look at other opportunities for partnerships with developers, both affordable housing developers and more market rate developers. We'll also look at some innovative sources or different sources of housing, some maybe smaller units, repurposed vacant buildings, et cetera. We've elected to form 3 subcommittees. Independent Housing Authority Board Subcommittee, Programs and Financial Stability, and Communications Subcommittee. And I'll talk about those in a couple of minutes. As we move down the list, I think one of the things we want to emphasize is that we're going to keep working with staff, planning staff and so forth as they go through the processes with developers and engage in collecting the fees and so forth. We really aren't the collection agency. But we'll certainly assist them and work with the developers to make sure that everybody's on the same page about how the projects are lined up and proposed. And then we'll continue to work with folks like CHAFA, the Colorado Division of Housing, neighboring jurisdictions, for a lot of things, but most importantly, to make sure that we're accessing their expertise and making sure that we're getting all the things we can from them to make Broomfield strong in the housing area. Next slide, please. Okay, our first subcommittee is the Independent Housing Authority Board. This one's headed by Alan Feinstein. And I know Tony's on it. I think Linda Fahrenbrook's on it. They're researching and going to present to City Council the steps for appointing an independent housing authority board. They're also researching with neighboring jurisdictions certain intergovernmental agreements that might be appropriate and so forth in this endeavor. Definitely working with the city attorney's office to prepare a detailed analysis and presentation about the pros and cons of what establishing an independent board would mean. And then lastly, the target for doing all of this is having it to you by the February 2021 period of time. So I think that's a really aggressive timeline, but Alan's certainly, as I think everyone knows, Alan was the executive director of Jefferson County Housing Authority for many, many years. So he's well suited to lead this group. Next slide, please. The Programs and Financial Stability Subcommittee. This one's formed, and I'm lucky enough to be in that one. Tony's been involved in that one. Mindy from our group has been involved in that one. And what we're really looking to do is to line up and show, much like you saw today, but in a little more formal fashion, how the sources of funds we are generating, where they're coming from, and then more importantly, maybe, is how we're going to use those or propose to use them. We're keeping things in mind like the timing of all of this, because certain programs may not have the flexibility in timing. In other words, you may need to make your commitments in tune with when your money's coming in. So we're keeping all of that in mind. But I think you can see that we've got a pretty broad-based starting with the existing CDBG relationships and so forth with our consolidated plan and group Boulder and Louisville, so forth. And then Cheryl acknowledged some of our uses, at least certainly to date. But these are some other ideas that we've at least started to kick around. And when we come back to City Council, we'll show you more details about how that proposed use of funds would look. Down at the bottom, we've got some more ideas. They're kind of sprinkled throughout here. So please, if you have a chance, take a look and let us know if there's other things that are important to you, because right now we're looking at this, we're kind of keeping in mind our current state with COVID and so forth, and the need to make sure we can get some housing options to people quickly. Next slide, please. And this communications and community outreach. This group is headed by Linda Fahrenbrook. Joy Castillo is on it. I'm also on it. This is really, I think, where we're going to really start to broaden our horizons as an advisory committee and working within the city. We've got several ideas about how to conduct outreach, communicate with our residents and throughout this city and county. Very many, I think it outlines well some of the media that we're going to be looking at. And I think the key is, especially want to call out Linda's leadership, but Joy is exceptional at the marketing and that kind of work. And she's really had some terrific ideas about how to make sure that we're in our outreach, we're reaching everyone we can through the various sources of media that are appropriate, maybe by age group or by education or whatever. So I think it'll really be a comprehensive effort and so forth. And I think that'll be something that you'll see more. I think tonight's session is a good example of what we're trying to accomplish. So I think we're down to the next slide is the last slide, Cheryl. And I think you're going to wrap it up for us.
Can you guys hear me?
Great. So just wanted to review
Cheryl?
again. Yes.
Another country heard from her, another state. Tony.
This is Tony Castle. I'm finally on. So can I just have a couple minutes because I will never be shut out of a meeting if I have an opportunity to talk.
Yeah, go ahead, Tony.
Just a couple of comments. First of all, I apologize for the technical issues, but they have. Secondly, thank you for picking out all the additional folks who have really gotten us on our way here. I don't want to take a lot of time, but I think a couple of things are happening here. You know, where I think with the inclusionary ordinance that we implemented recently, we were afraid the way it was structured that we'd see nothing but cash in lieu. While cash is always a good thing to have, it's not really a good substitute for actual doors. We have seen several developers come to us in the last 45 days that have committed to go ahead and actually give us doors. And I think the one slide that Cheryl presented for me, I must say, thank you, Cheryl. You know, where we have, you know, over 1,000 doors committed and more coming, and some very creative things happening out there. You know, we had one developer say, hey, we're going to give you land. How about that? So we are seeing, first of all, you know, some people were concerned with this inclusionary ordinance we were going to be lacking in, or we're going to, you know, stall out some of the developers, take away their interest. That has not happened. We see all the interest in developing in Broomfield. We see people who certainly want to pay cash, but we also see some really good proposals to really put some doors and open them for our neighbors in need. So with that said, I would say thank you to the council, Mr. Mayor. You've been a great support to us, and with the 3 committees that we're implementing now, I think we've got a great you know, path forward. It's very exciting to us. So that's, you know, without being to address the slides directly because they've already been done, I just wanted to throw my 2 cents in, and from my end and from our team's end, just an awesome experience, and we anticipate that going into the future. So Cheryl, I'll let you wrap up. Thank you very much for the time.
Thanks, Tony. It's really been an advantage for me as a staff person to work with such a dedicated board. just a great group of people. To wrap up, so this is our timeline for going into the first part of 2021, where the committee is looking at a study session with council with more details, as Bob mentioned, on sources of funds, uses of funds, and new programs and how those might work. And we're really looking for council to add to our list of things that we should look at, research, and bring recommendations back to council regarding. And then we have our special allocation from the CARES Act of CDBG Community Development Block Grant funding, an additional $264,000 that we will need to bring back in January with recommended uses so we can submit an amendment to our plan to HUD so that they will release those funds to us. And those funds all do need to be related to needs relating to the result of the pandemic. So we will come up with some programs and some uses for those and present that to council in January. I think Bob also mentioned that the goal is to bring a study session to council regarding the establishment of an independent housing authority board, working with the city legal staff and bringing all of that information to you so you can make a decision on moving forward with that. This type of update we would like to do on a quarterly basis. So being that this is November, we said February, May, August, and November might be a good time to bring this kind of a status update that really summarizes the sources of funds. Did we receive what we thought we were going to get? The uses of those funds, and go forward with that. If council would like us to do it more often, we are certainly, that's what this update is for, is to get your opinion and what you would like to see. And then of course, as we have new opportunities that pop up, we will continue to bring those as they come on. So Mr. Mayor, that is our formal presentation, and we're all here now to answer questions or address any other things that come up. Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation. Very much appreciated. Let's go to public comments. If there's anyone who would like to be heard, please press *3. State your first and last name and neighborhood for the record. And once again, I'm not seeing anybody in the queue. And the Mayor Pro Tem agrees. So we'll go to questions from the authority members next. Authority member Castriota.
Thank you so much, Mayor. And I am so excited about this presentation. You guys have just, been working so hard and quietly getting so much done. So I'm going to call you all out and thank you. Thank you, Tony Castle, Bob Monroe, Joy Castillo, Linda Farnbrook, Alan Feinstein, James Peters, Mindy Kitchon, Barbara Kelly, and council members Law Evans and Tessier. When I look at this list of everything that we've accomplished, it just fills me with so much pride and gratitude. So I'm just so excited that the movement that we're seeing and the possibilities for the future. I'm ready to take the next step. Whenever you guys say, let's go to Independent Housing Authority, and I look forward to the upcoming study sessions. Thank you so much for all your hard work. That's all.
Councilmember Schaaf, or Authority Member Schaaf.
Thank you, Chair of our authority. I always love getting reports from this committee. Cheryl and committee, thank you for your work and your report. To council member, I guess your council members in that role, Law Evans and Tessier, thank you for your council representation on this committee. I'm really excited to see the Independent Housing Authority Board coming to fruition. I'm excited that that's going to be in front of us, potentially in January, February time. With both Councilmember Tessier and La Evans both be term limited in November 21st, I would love to be able to get this authority done before that timeline. They've just given such tremendous work and time to this committee, and I would love to see that be one of their lasting legacies to the city and county of Broomfield is the creation of this independent housing authority. So love to see that. Hopefully, the timeline can work out, but I know that we're all anxious to make that happen. You had mentioned the timeline for that. I was curious what the timeline looked for the smaller house options, and if there were some needed ordinances for those tiny homes. And I can't remember some of the other small house options that you had mentioned, but didn't know if you had a timeline for those and what that was going to look like.
Councilmember Shafts, Bob Monroe, nothing specific at this time. I think we'll be bringing something in 2021, but it'll probably be later in the year. We want to do that research with the staff about the zoning and so forth before we bring it forward.
Okay, great. I'll be looking forward to that. I think that that's one of those key areas. And then I was also looking forward to this report to hear more about the ADU progress. We passed an ordinance allowing ADUs. We've had a lot of community conversations regarding ADUs. And I was wondering, how many ADUs have been created here on Broomfield?
Cheryl, you want to go?
So at this point, we have not seen anything completed. There has been some inquiries. There's been actually some plans presented to the building department on one, but I don't think that has actually happened. And it could be with everything else that happened in the world, everything got put on hold. But as of right now, we haven't seen anything actually completed.
Okay.
Well, I have to say,
go on, Mr. Castle.
Yeah, I was just going to say, with other municipalities that have implemented an ADU ordinance, I think this is a typical response. And I would stress saying that just because we're not seeing the applications or the plans for those, keep in mind they're still out there. So I think it's also kind of a legislative tool as well as a production management type of approach. So I'm not discouraged by it. I think it's a nice tool to have in our belt, but it's good to have there. So go from there.
Great. As I think Ms. Sinclair knows, I attended a virtual conference on housing, and one of the municipalities that presented there talked about how their municipality created the template for ADUs. They even created the construction drawings of what these various ADUs could be, which significantly lowered the cost for those ADUs for the entire community. And what they saw is a major spike after those drawings were created, as they went through the process to demonstrate how that could happen, how affordable those could be done. And so they saw a major spike. And I just think that might be worthwhile. If this is really one of those tools, and we're not seeing a lot of fruit, it might be worth it to look into that case study to see what pieces can we implement from there to really kind of make this program successful, because this is one of those possibilities of really adding affordable housing to our community. So I can look up that municipality and share that with the committee if Ms. Sinclair doesn't have that.
I think that would be a tremendous option, because here's with one of our subcommittees, which is our communications and outreach group. It'd be a great topic for a forum or a seminar, to engage the community and, say, hey, here's how you can do it. So great idea. We'd absolutely be open for something like that.
Great. Awesome. Great to hear. So if Broomfield were to better support housing for our homeless, and there was a little mention in here with hotel vouchers, but if there was going to be more of a conversation regarding tiny home communities, such as what they've done in Denver, or a shelter, which they've done in Boulder, would that conversation be held by the Housing Authority later on, or is this going to be more of a conversation out of Human Services and Council? What would that look like at a future date?
I would envision both.
Okay.
I mean, this is a multi-pronged issue. I think the biggest issue, right now with tiny homes is just what you have with any kind of a density situation. You just have to find a place to put them, right? And a place that's easily managed and is affordable and practical. So, but I think, just as I've said in a number of other discussions, these are where we really need partnerships, whether it's within the city and county, whether it's Health and Human Services or faith-based organizations to partner with us, or a group like FISH. Yes, we need that because there's a lot of different levels and complexities to this type of a solution that needs to come to the fore for everybody to really be successful.
Great. Well, as I've participated in conversations with Boulder County through my role as the on the Boulder County Consortium of Cities, it's a bunch of letters and words. We've had a lot of presentations from them regarding housing. And it does seem to me that there's a lot of different partnerships. There's a lot of different pieces in which supports the whole of housing in a community. So I think that we continue to build those pieces and partnerships, and I look forward to how all those pieces come together. But more so, or I would say even so, your next presentation and your quarterly update. So thank you, committee. Thank you, Ms. St. Clair, and thank you to our council representatives.
Yeah. Hey, Mr. Authority Member. I keep forgetting it's Masters Week. Which hole is that?
I think it is number 14, by the way.
Okay, because it didn't look like 13 or 12. So anyway.
13. Actually, it is 13. You're right. I'm sorry. I meant 13 when I said 14. Up on the scoreboard, you'll see that it says through 14, and so that is the 13th hole.
It doesn't feel like Masters Week. So Authority Member Henkel.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Cheryl, and thank you, committee. I really appreciate all your work, and I'll never forget meeting Tony Castle for the first time. And pretty much the first words out of his mouth were, cash in lieu is great, but doors are better, right? So I think I hear that message loud and clear, and I'm just so proud of all the diversity within the housing that we're getting. Like you said, places for it, so land, doors, and cash in lieu, and I think that that's really important for sure. I look at all these numbers and I'm just so proud of all the work that you all have done. It's very comprehensive work and it's intentional work. And we know that it's not going to happen overnight. And I feel like you guys are like this water, just creating this Grand Canyon of opportunity. And I can see that. And I envision just such a beautiful place that Broomfield can be in holding our workforce housing and those who just need our basic needs. It's a right to have housing. So I appreciate you guys and benefiting human rights. That's what your work is. So, hey, all these numbers are great. I'm not worried. I just wanted to know about in the future, if we get numbers, we know that this is a regional issue. And so when we talk about regional issues, I would love to see how others also in their numbers as well, and possibly what they're doing for affordable housing and what that looks like, so that we can kind of look, are we helping the system? Are we hurting the system? I think that would kind of help for Broomfield's population. And then I love that you guys are reaching out to the business communities. I feel like the business communities really need to hear what's happening and what could happen. What does the relationship look like with the Chamber of Commerce? And have we done any presentations to the Chamber or involved a lot of their members in what you guys are doing?
We have not done anything yet, but that was actually a very specific item that Joy brought up in our last subcommittee meeting about reaching out to a group exactly like that. So we have been engaging Jeff Romine in our meetings and so forth to have his expertise from the economic side and so forth, but we haven't done the formal presentation to the group yet.
Gotcha. I think it'd be a great way to recruit members for the workplace, to say, hey, we're working with our affordable housing and we've got your back. We not only want you in our place, in our environment, but we also want your family too. And we want your family to live here too. And I feel like that's very important for our region. And then one last thing, my mom was homeless and I always thought, how can we get creative with things? And we know that we don't have any abandoned army posts where we have the barracks, right? I always thought it'd be great. My mom could live in an army barracks. She always dreamed of that. And so I thought, Mom, I can't do that for you. I can't just magically, make that appear. I'm just curious as to what sort of buildings do we already have made that we could, what is our homeless, I love the fact that we have these hotel vouchers, but what is our homeless plan, and to really have, homeless housing and shelters?
If I could, I told Bob I was going to shut up and I was going to I can take this round, but I can't help myself. I would say that, there are some smaller facilities that are available. I should say that are vacant. Whether they're available and practical is another story. I'm involved with the fish team as well, and quite honestly, I've been working with Dana Scott, the executive director, and she indicated that she is aware of a couple of properties in the close-in area that might be a good and easily transformable pieces of property that, for us to build it from the ground up, well, we're 3 years down the road, right? And what do we find, to your point, to do it now? And that's one of the things that I personally am working with, just to try and identify some of those. And, that's a great use of our funds right now. It will take again, it's going to be a partnership between us. It's going to be, the public, the city and county to try and manage life safety issues, so that these are safe as well as warm areas for our homeless, unhoused people. So it's on the books. We're looking at it, and before our next meeting, I'm going to try and facilitate a discussion amongst ourselves, Broomfield Community Foundation, and Fish, and see if we can get some momentum behind that.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you all for all of your work. I just love it. Thank you.
Authority Member Tessier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I started to get a little weepy with joy listening to my fellow colleagues talk about this really important issue here in Broomfield. And I am just so thrilled and so excited. Broomfield Housing Advisory Committee, if I had a hat, my hat's off to you. You've been so inspiring. Cheryl, you've been such a tremendous facilitator and director and all things connector, and so grateful. I wanted to share a little bit about some of the conversations that Fish and other organizations are having around shelters or working to alleviate the the homelessness problem. There's a group of people working on a program called Built for Zero, and that is targeting certain populations. So for example, we met with the veterans outreach team who has a tiny home village for veterans in Longmont. So we're looking at trying to recreate that without having to recreate a lot of the work that's involved. We're looking at more permanent and transitional housing options. And I think with this cash in lieu, that we're going to be able to purchase some of the buildings because they don't exist right now. And we did, I think the city and county approached a couple, Jeff Romine approached a couple of the buildings that were vacant across the street from Fish. And one, they were super expensive, wanted to have, we were hoping to lease month to month, and they wanted a lease to, to buy, and we couldn't do that at this point. And they're really expensive. The one thing I would like to know is, has the Broomfield Housing Advisory Committee gotten all the land that Broomfield has that is available at this point? I know there's been talk about the map. Have we seen it?
Cheryl?
Yeah, we got it. We haven't done anything. I know it was sent to like Cheryl and so forth, Sharon, but we haven't sat down to start plotting against specific sites or anything like that.
I think now that we have some cash, I mean, just doing the quick math, we had, 1.65 million in 2020 and maybe 4.56 dedicated for 2021 and maybe another 5 million in the near future. So I feel like we're starting to develop, like that's where the cash in lieu is going to be really important for us at this point. So we build up that in order to purchase and hopefully preserve. I'm curious about, I didn't see anything mentioned about a registry for landlords. And I think what I've noticed in my experience and a lot of the conversations happening around the neighborhood is that with the pandemic, it would have been a really powerful tool for us to have in order to get in touch with landlords and provide landlords some of the help that was available to them through different sort of funding mechanisms through COVID. And we just don't have a way of knowing who our landlords are and how to get in touch with them. I mean, Fish has been blessed enough, cursed enough, I don't know, the COVID curse or something. During this, one of the silver linings is that we've gotten to have a number of relationships with a lot of the leasing agencies. We're just missing some of those private landlords who probably could have benefited from some of the assistance that was out there, and we just have no way of knowing. So that was one of the things I was hoping we could take a look at and do a little research on to see how other communities are doing that, and then maybe bring back to the council, in the next quarter or something. Is that, because it was talked about, I just didn't see it here. So I was wondering where you guys were at with that.
I was saying, Sharon, I'll be blunt. That's one of those that I have little experience with. So frankly, I forgot it. So I just wrote it down, and I'll make sure it's on the next one.
Awesome. Thanks, Bob. And then real quick, I don't know if you can provide any little teasers or something about what's to come, but are there any low-hanging fruit that you're seeing at this point, or will you have more information for us at the next meeting, at the next update?
I can't say that we have a whole lot still in the bag. I think we want to be as transparent and full disclosure as possible. But I will tell you, just regarding, just step back one bit. I personally have had a couple of calls regarding, and they've been very preliminary in terms of landlord registration. So I've got to re-engage with the three folks that I spoke with prior. I think Tribe, I believe, and Ron Lampo. We've had that discussion primarily because we have and/or manage properties. So I'm gonna make that a personal note as well. I think that the biggest thing that we have to look forward to is a fairly quick flow of information. That the information will start flowing fairly quickly regarding the housing authority. As soon as we can get kind of a legal basis under our belt in terms of with whom we engage legally, in terms of counsel, I think we'll start seeing that flow fairly quickly. So very excited.
Okay, awesome. My one last question, and this is it, is my understanding is that housing is pretty complex. And are you considering, do you think it would benefit this this work to have outside counsel with specialty in housing law as outside counsel to supplement what we have here?
I know that the Independent Housing Board group has been talking with legal staff, and it's my understanding that there has been a pretty significant discussion around using an outside counsel as well. But I see Sean just popped up, so I'll let him give the word.
Yeah, Councilwoman, we've been asked that, and certainly we're going to have somebody from our office involved, but we're willing to look at outside counsel that has some special expertise in it, particularly with the transition going on right now in our office and just for expanding staff.
Great. Thank you so much. And thanks so much for everybody's work and all your comments tonight.
Authority Member Law Evans.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the opportunity, and I certainly appreciate all the kind words that everyone has spoken. I wanted to make a couple of comments about my observations. I've been on this committee now, well, since its inception. I think Sharon and I were the two committee members from council since its inception.
And I believe, is it 3 years now? Something like that. Yeah. So we've seen a couple of cycles of appointees and whatnot. And this committee, true, and I'll come back to this point in a minute, is truly an amazing group of people with a depth and breadth of knowledge that is fantastic. And this committee has really contributed to my ongoing understanding of housing issues and how potentially they might be solved without running afoul of, I don't know, extra political baggage, maybe is the right word there. So I appreciate the education opportunity from this committee. I see Bob kind of grinning there on the screen in particular. I appreciate the education that you all have given me. A couple of comments, however, when it comes to affordable housing, we're chasing the market and talking about buying property or buying somehow creating shelters and whatnot for the homeless. We're chasing the market in so many ways, and I don't know where that's going to stop. You know, as a realtor and as a property owner, you kind of, honestly, you sort of enjoy chasing the market like this. But then when it comes to being a citizen and having responsibilities towards the citizenry, it's daunting. So the fact that we're working on this at all, I think is helpful. So housing, and especially the homeless, is such an incredibly complex issue. And I would prefer, as we move forward towards looking at solutions for the homeless, that we make sure we have to start somewhere. And I understand that could be some sort of interim housing, vouchers, whatever, but I want to make sure we keep our eyes on the eventual goal, which is getting those folks into stable housing of their own. And I want to make sure that that's something we keep on the horizon as we work on these problems. Regarding, to give feedback to the committee, you know, I've listened to an awful lot of committee meetings and sat through them, and I'm just so impressed. When it comes to working on the housing authority, something that I've said and I'm going to keep repeating, and I know that the authority subcommittee is working on that. I do want to make sure that there are some provisions in that for accountability. As an elected official, we are accountable to our constituents, and I want to make sure that any appointees have some sort of accountability mechanism as well, because this will be probably the most important, I'm just thinking this thought right now, the most important appointed position in the city and county of Broomfield. And so I think it's important for the citizens to know that those appointees do have accountability somehow. So I know, Tony, you're on that, and you and I have had this discussion. So I appreciate you all working on that. Again, I would echo, this is an incredibly thoughtful, hardworking committee with a deep understanding of the issues and of what it's going to take to try and make a dent in this simple sounding yet incredibly complex issue. So appreciate all the committee members. And lastly, I think that the committee asked for feedback as to quarterly updates and whatnot. I agree with quarterly updates just like this. I think this has been very helpful. I think this was exactly what council asked for when we asked the committee to come in front of us. So that's my feedback. Thank you all very much.
Yeah, so, you know, playing off that authority member Lyons, I guess, you know, and I'll just look at the council. I mean, I think this is a great report, and Cheryl had asked about quarterly, and I think we go ahead. I mean, the schedule that you laid out for quarterly, let's go ahead and go with that schedule. I mean, I don't think we need to take a formal action of the council. This level of reporting seemed to be just perfect, and I do remain incredibly impressed by the breadth and the how much effort the committee puts into it. I do want to call out Sharon Tessier, that I was term limited the previous time just before, just as she got elected. And I remember sitting with her in Starbucks talking about affordable housing and housing authorities. And it just, because there was a huge recession, it just, it wasn't an issue of the councils, and maybe because it was the nature of the council in those days. But I just think about that, Sharon, what you've achieved with these committees and everybody else has been pretty remarkable. And as I've said earlier, I personally think that the efforts, while you guys are doing Herculean efforts, and whatever, the same effort we put into our open space program needs to be put into affordable housing, through all the efforts you guys are talking about. So anyway, kudos to you. So thank you very much. We'll move on then to the Broomfield Urban Renewal Authority. So thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay. So move on to the Broomfield Urban Renewal Authority. For the purpose of coordination and the interest of time, we'll also convene the Broomfield Urban Renewal Authority so that we may review this item concurrently with council. The item of the Broomfield Urban Renewal Authority is called to order, or the meeting of the Broomfield Urban Renewal Authority. I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Anderson,
Here.
Castriata,
Here.
Groom, Hinkle,
Here.
Jezierski,
Stan?
Sorry, I'm
Law
here.
Evans.
Jezierski's here.
All right.
Okay.
Let the train leave. Law Evans,
Here.
Lynn,
Here.
Lindstedt,
Here.
Schaff,
Here.
Tessier.
Here.
A quorum is present. Council has a copy of the agenda memorandum, which staff will summarize.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We're going to divide and conquer on this one. David Allen, the Director of Public Works, is going to start with the discussion regarding the retaining wall, and Kevin Stambridge, short-termer, will follow up with the remaining part of the conversation with the Broomfield Town Square. David?
Thank you, Ms. Hoffman. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. The first resolution that's being presented for your consideration on this item is related to repairs for retaining wall that was damaged this past winter. The damage was caused by repeated placement of snow in a parking lot that is on the northwest corner of the property, and it generally corresponds to the intersection of First and Main, and that would be kind of the southeast corner of the property there. The retaining wall itself failed on December 2019, and as a result of that failure, we subsequently closed the sidewalk that was adjacent to that for safety reasons. And what we're proposing to do is to hire a firm called Keller North America, Inc. They have done some slope stabilization work out in Interlochen in the past, and they successfully stabilized that slope that had damage to a water line. And what we're proposing to do here is to effectively do a short-term stabilization of that specific area that has failed, so that we can at least stabilize the area and then reopen the sidewalk with a long-term plan of moving forward with permanent repairs in the future as part of the larger town hall development project. And so again, what's being presented for your consideration this evening is approval to go ahead and proceed and procure the services of Keller North America in the amount of $60,500 to proceed with that retaining wall work. So that concludes my portion of the presentation. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Mr. Stambridge to provide a summary for the next two resolutions that are being presented for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members, and authority members. It's a treat to be able to sit here this evening and talk to you about the next phase and moving forward with the Broomfield Town Square project. Following the successful concept review and neighborhood meetings, the development team is moving towards final design, engineering, and survey work. All of these would allow the construction of the public infrastructure to begin with the private development to follow. It's estimated that there remain about $775,000 worth of additional work to be done to get the project through the zoning approvals and be ready for the site construction to begin. In addition, I should note that the developer has fronted $153,791 of costs for work that's been completed, in addition to funds previously provided by Broomfield. Broomfield did contribute $440,000 to fees that got the design work and the concept plan done that you all saw in May, and I believe it left the community excited and ready to see this project move forward. In addition to the additional work, the cost already expended, there's a request for an additional 9% contingency as we move forward. I should have started with this, but what the development team is proposing that for these additional fees, the money paid or obligated but not yet spent, and the contingency, which is equals $1 million, that the city and the development team split the cost on a 50-50 basis. On the first $440,000 provided, that was all Broomfield's money. And the proposal is, as we move closer to realization of the project, it's a 50-50 split between the development team and Broomfield. And just remind everybody, the signature town square that we're looking for, it's a curated mix of retail restaurants, ideally local and unique to the area, interconnected and pedestrian-friendly network of streets, promenades, trails, and public spaces to knit it all together. Built environment that encourages a healthy lifestyle and community, incorporation of public art, and a town square that embodies resilient and environmental sustainable strategies into the construction and function of the public realm and built environment. I went through the cost part of it. I should also note that the overall project, and this is included in the staff memorandum, is over $200 million. The expectation and the financials that we've seen to date have the developer providing $178 million for the project private investment and private development, and Broomfield's previously committed to providing up to $24 million for the construction of public infrastructure from revenues generated from within the property. And again, those are solely from revenues generated within the property. I should note that the money, the $440,000 that's been spent, and additionally, potentially the additional $500,000 are eligible to be reimbursed with the bond issuance when this project moves forward. So that'll be a decision for a future council, but everything's being done to assure that these monies would be eligible for reimbursement as we move forward. With that, I'd like to, and I would note in the council memorandum, in addition to what I just talked about, you have a current project schedule embedded in the document if anybody has any questions on that. With that, I'd like to note that Joe Bostridge and Tim Frederigill, Broomfield Town Square Alliance, are both present. And I'd ask Joe or Tim if either of them would like to make any additional comments. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Oh, Joe, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. I appreciate the opportunity to see you again, albeit virtually. Our project is moving forward nicely right now. We're really excited about it. It's got a lot of traction. We've got a lot of our consultants that are doing all the design work engaged, and we're excited to try and keep the project on schedule. As you all know, we've been working on this for 3 years, which is a long time. And we're still probably, if you look at the schedule, I think we're still, and Tim will correct me if I get this wrong, but we're still looking at 2022, you know, to really break ground on this. So we really, really want to stay on schedule. So the opportunity to continue to partner with the city, you know, going forward is something we are grateful for, and you know, hope you'll approve this proposal to continue to be partners on the project with us, both going at risk as we go forward. I do want to, remind everyone that these are reimbursable expenditures that we're making right now. So at such time as the project gets fully funded and financed, both sides will be reimbursed for these expenses. But we're very optimistic with it. I want Tim to update you on a couple of things. One is just where exactly we are on the design work, but also Tim's been leading the discussions with the investors on this project. We have a lot of interested investors in the project, which is very, very encouraging given what's going on in the world right now. But there's a lot of attraction for this project, which gives us a tremendous amount of confidence and excitement about moving forward. So Tim, you want to take it from there?
Yeah, thanks, Joe. With respect to design, you all have seen through our prior public hearings the state of where we're at with the core of the first phase of the Broomfield Town Square. With that, there's a large apartment community, there's an active adult, age-restricted community, a large mixed-use, experiential retail and commercial opportunity. Those all kind of frame up the core of the town square with the addition of the new lake, as you're aware. So the design for the vertical could be defined as 100% schematic design, meaning all of the essential operations of the building have been thought through with respect to loading, leasing office mailroom, trash, parking counts, parking ratios, unit mix, unit count, amenities, amenity location. So all of the core of the what are the buildings has been thought through. However, the true design work is yet to come, and that the true design work is outside of the public scope. That's a private development need and expense, and that'll progress once we're through full zoning approval. For the time being, what we're working on now is civil engineering. This project is very large. It's over 20 acres of land, so immense drainage challenges. There is a floodway and a floodplain involved. Of course, a new lake. So it's a pretty heavy lift from an engineering perspective, and so we're in progress with engineering now, and we think we're hoping to be wrapping all that up within the next in this calendar year, and submitting to you all for our formal submittal. We still will need to process some floodway, floodplain remapping, CLOMR, LOMR, if you will, as well as a 404 permit through the Corps of Engineers. But it's progressing nicely, as Joe said. So what we're asking for today is, again, assistance with just the heavy lift on the master planning and the civil engineering are the core of the expenses right now. There's also affiliated studies, drainage studies, soils reports, environmental things of that nature. But again, you've seen the touch and feel design work that was completed a little bit earlier, and now it's the less exciting stuff that's mostly below ground, but takes a lot of effort. With respect to financing, weirdly, the suburbs are in, and they are the darling of investment. Over the past decade, you've seen just a core of capital pouring into the urban core. Recently the tides have turned, and so we've received tremendous interest in the project throughout the process, but it does appear to have had a bit of an uptick lately. And at last count, just last week, I tabulated them up. We have 14 credible capital partners that are real and interested in the project at this point. So we will. We feel very good about our ability to capitalize the project once we get through zoning approval, and once the plans are complete and we're ready to go vertical. But between there and here, we still do have a decent lift on the public-private part, the master plan, if you will. And I guess with that, we could potentially open up for questions if there's any from council or the renewal authority.
Mayor, you're muted.
I want to go to public comments first. Kim Groom, is that you that signed on as Kimberly?
No, I believe that might be Kimberly Dahl, the
Okay,
Deputy Director of Public Works. Thanks, Mayor.
I thought it was our missing Kim. So let's go to public comments. If there's anyone who'd like to be heard, please press *3. State your first and last name and neighborhood for the record. I'm not noting anybody in the queue, so let's go to authority and council members. Councilmember Schaaf.
Thank you, Mayor. So first of all, I got to clarify something I messed up on earlier. So the Masters tournament is one of my favorite sports. However, I really botched the number hole. This is number 16th hole.
I thought it was 16. That's
right.
What it's about. Yeah. Okay.
It's the site of the skipping across the pond. And it's where John Ram the other day skipped it across the pond from the tee box, skipped across the pond, went onto the green and rolled in for a hole-in-one. So if you haven't seen it, it's pretty amazing. It doesn't happen, but maybe once in a century. So check it out. All right, with that out of the way, I'll go back to the local Broomfield issues. So it's great to see this project continuing to move forward in a great way. Thank you, Mr. Vostrich and Mr. Fredigale for being with us tonight and your updates on the project. This is very exciting for me as a council member, but I know that this is very exciting for our community here on Broomfield. It's unfortunate that we're taking care of the roof and the stabilization of this wall. It just it seems like frustrating expenses to have to do in terms of maintenance when we're building this site, but it's necessary expenses that the city has. With Broomfield having the responsibility of the maintenance on the common areas, this is something that we have in ours. So I'm definitely supportive of Resolution 2020-245. It really looks like this project is coming closer and closer to be finalized. I really appreciate that these expenses are going to be shared on an equal basis between Broomfield Town Square LLC and Broomfield, and that these costs will be reimbursable from future bonds, from future bond proceeds from this project. So I support the other resolutions as well. I think that this continues to be a top priority, or one of the top priorities for council and a top priority for the community in finalizing this project and getting construction started. So I look forward to the continued movement through the rest of 2020 and 2021, and hopefully starting construction in 2021, 2022. So thank you for your presentation and thanks for being here with us.
Councilmember Lamb.
Yes, I had a question about the root cause of the wall failure. So the cause was identified as the snow being piled up in one corner of the parking lot above it. Are we concerned about, even after this wall gets fixed, that the snow is still going to be piled up in one corner of the parking lot? Are we not concerned about that because we're confident of the new wall construction, or do we know it's not getting piled up there? That's my question.
So, great question, Councilmember Lim. Yes, we've contacted and have been working with our contractor who does the snow plowing for that location, and we've designated a different location for them to pile up the snow. In addition to that, we're also confident that after we get the repairs done, that even if they were to inadvertently pile the snow there, that the repairs would be able to hold up and not cause further damage at that location.
Thank you. My next question is about the reimbursement, the money for the design and engineering expenses. So I appreciate the detailed schedule. There's a detailed schedule in Exhibit C about what the additional money is needed for. I'm not clear if these expenses were always anticipated, or if these items are beyond what was initially budgeted and there's now a cost overrun. I'm not clear on that. Could someone address that?
Yeah, I could address that. It's a blend of the two. So there are some additional costs that we are incurring with the project, particularly with the lake and discoveries of the efforts that's going to take to complete the lake. The extra engineering is substantial. It also does add to schedule, though we still believe in the merits of that being a critical component to the placemaking for the project. There's also additional costs that, were originally anticipated that we're still going to need to accrue or incur.
Yeah. Tim, it's Kevin. If I may jump in, Councilmember Lim, I would just add that as you've seen the evolution of the plans for the former Safeway building, they're very ambitious, and they essentially create two buildings out of that. And I think the design costs of the Safeway are substantially more than we had anticipated. But in return, I think we get a really extraordinary entryway from the south into the town square, and a really unique building with community uses, private uses, food and entertainment, and just a really, overuse the word, unique and extraordinary experience as you come into the facility, into the project.
It's a good
Thank
point,
you.
Kevin. And yeah, and so with that, with the progression of the design of the Safeway building, it's become apparent that we need a critical connection between the north and the south, the plaza and everything that's happening towards 120th. So there will be a clean public face towards the south facing 120th, which does require additional landscape architecture and civil engineering. And then as Kevin noted, that paseo that flows through the Safeway building and then flowing down into the plaza. Those are things that have developed through the design process, and were not originally anticipated, though we do think are critical components.
I appreciate that explanation for the additional costs. Do we feel at this point that we have a handle? I mean, I understand that you said that the lake construction is complex. Do we feel like we have a handle on these costs, or will we be looking 6 months at being asked for additional funding?
We do have a handle on them, and we do not anticipate coming back to you all for any additional funding.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Tessier.
Thank you. So my first question is for Mr. Allen. David, does it make sense to just rebuild the wall? Or, I mean, was there any discussion about, is there a way to mitigate it so it kind of doesn't cost us more money for when we do the development for the town square?
Hi, Councilmember Tessier. Yes, we did look at a more permanent repair. However, those costs were considerably higher than just the repair. I think our initial estimates were upwards of $120,000 to $130,000. And given that this area is going to be redeveloped, we didn't feel comfortable reinvesting that level of funding at that specific location until we had a better sense of what the overall development plan would be.
Awesome, thank you. And then Deputy Manager Stanbridge, my goodness. You have been on this project for like ever. And I am just so excited for you that like this is happening, and you've worked so hard, and you've been such a wizard in Broomfield, and I just wanted to just take a moment to commend you and to honor you, not only for this particular project, for all the work that you've done in this community, and the continued work you do up until your last day here, which is not far away. And I'm hoping we find some way to honor you with a name or something in this project. I'm so grateful for you and your patience and your continued dedication. I do have one question for you, and I was curious if you could share with us how the last public meeting with the neighborhood went with regard to some of their concerns. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Firstly, Councilmember Tessier, thank you so much for those kind words. And I'll just share with you, having been at the table with you all and the development team through all this, is really, that's been the thrill, the privilege and the thrill through all of this. So thank you. It's really been an extraordinary experience. So yes, we had in September, late September, a virtual meeting. We had about 50 participants from the neighborhood. I presume they're from the neighborhood, and about 10 to 15 people from the staff and the development team. And the development team and some of the additional costs had done a massing study, and we were able to show some fairly simple drawings on the height on the east side of Main Street versus the existing single-family homes on the west side. So there was certainly some concern about height, and we talked about stepping back the building in a couple areas. We talked about doing a shadow study. There was some concern from neighbors a little further north that where the driveway came out onto Main Street, that there might be headlights coming in the front of their houses. Development team talked about how we can use landscaping, maybe some low walls and things like that to block that. And then parking came up as a concern. I think staff will be working with them. I don't know if we'll look at permit parking in that area, but we do have some alternatives as we move forward to address that. And then there were a few people who were concerned about traffic on First Avenue at Main Street and suggested that we close Main Street to the east side. But frankly, what we've learned in much of this over the years, good news, bad news is you got the automobile, and you want it in a limited fashion to be able to go through the development so people can drive through and see what's there, but you don't want to shut it off because that could be the kiss of death. And so I think we'll look at ways to moderate traffic, neck downs on the street and different treatments for brick and pavers as you cross the street. So other techniques to do that. But I think those were the primary issues. Mr. Vostrich and Mr. Fothergill both participated in the meeting. If I missed anything, fellas, jump in if you would. Briefly.
That was a pretty good summary. I think to your point, I saw 55 attendees, so pretty good attendance for a virtual meeting. And we received over 60 questions. So I think the virtual format does embolden some people who are maybe not as comfortable speaking publicly, to type a question in, and we were able to address like over 50 of those questions live and on the spot. So it's a really good format, great attendance. We received some follow-up comments since then on the Broomfield Voice, and I believe a couple direct emails. So I've been just reacting to those, and as Kevin noted, following up with some additional studies, parking study, just trying to make sure that all questions have been addressed.
That's really good to hear, because I know that, I appreciate all of the time and energy that has gone into the public meetings and making sure that they feel they're the most impacted. And I appreciate all of the attention to those concerns to mitigate those. And then lastly, Joe and Tim, I'm super stoked to hear that there are already investors interested in the project. I'm like, ooh. So well done. I look forward to, supporting, our partnership, and, just wanted to say how grateful I am for your patience and your dedication and your commitment and your willingness to stick with us through the best of times and the worst of times. So I appreciate your partnership. Thank you.
Likewise.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, Councilmember Law Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So first of all, I want to echo what Councilmember Tessier just said about Mr. Stanbridge. Kevin, this is just, it's hard to have this be one of the last meetings. I keep thinking every meeting is the last meeting. But you have been a stalwart force, a stalwart energy in Broomfield for so long. And I'm really going to miss working with you. So I hope, yeah, but all right. I don't want to get weepy. But I do have questions for you, and I appreciate Councilmember Lim bringing up some of the questions concerning this ask for more money. And I especially was very interested to hear the response you gave to Councilmember Lim concerning that you do not anticipate any further requests for money. And I guess I'm having a fair amount of trouble with that, because as I recall, when we approved the development agreement, there were statements made along the lines of, this is it, there won't be any more requests, this is it. So Mr. Stanbridge, if you could, would you like to comment on that thought?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Councilmember Law Evans. I'm trying to go through real quickly, just process the prior conversations we've had about it. And certainly in this case, the $440,000 plus the additional money that's been put into by the development team, the additional $130,000, got us through the concept review and to a level of design that we can be confident that the project can move forward as we've depicted it and presented it to the community. And I think what we're looking at now is we're getting into the real construction plans. And what we had talked about was the original pool of funding was provided by Broomfield, and we said then we'd come back at a later date and talk about how those costs are met, and didn't offer a solution nor an alternative. And I think what we're coming back to you with now is that the developer's confident that the project's feasible, can move forward. They're willing, they put their time into it, as well as substantial monies to pay for legal counsel and others. And they're at the point that and I'm speaking for them, and I trust they'll correct me, but that in addition to the time and the money they put in, they're ready to put in a lot more money, and leading to their ultimate investment of, I think I said $178 million. So we're really getting to that level of detail where this moves forward. So I guess that's what I would say in my mind is different than when we originally had the conversation. We're there, and it's moving forward, and we're doing the design that becomes the construction plans. So I don't know if that helps.
I appreciate, yes, it does help. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. If we do not, and I don't know how I feel about this, but if we do not approve this tonight, what happens?
I would defer to Mr. Vostrich or Mr. Frederick on that one.
Mr. Vostrich, Mr. Frederick, if we don't approve this tonight, where do we go from here?
Well, the project will obviously continue. I have some concerns about how quickly we want to keep the project moving quickly and staying on the schedule that we've published. In full candor, both our companies, Millender White and City Street Investors, these endeavors are funded by our cash flow. I mean, with that, we've got to continue to fund it. As you know, we haven't taken any fees at this point. In fact, we haven't taken any fees for 3 years. So, we're using our cash flow to continue to fund this project and keep it moving forward. But as I said, in full candor, our cash flow isn't what it was a year ago. And I want to make sure that the thing stays on schedule. We're fully committed to it, and we'll continue to do this. And we're confident because we know that the expenses are reimbursable, through the, once the financing sits in place. So we know that the money, we're confident that the money will be reimbursed. But I think that the vote of confidence from Broomfield and from you all to partner with this side by side on a 50-50 deal helps keep the project, moving forward at the clip that we want. It's far enough out in the future that I sure hate to see it get delayed any further. So I think this is a good way for the city to continue to partner with us, for which we're extremely grateful, and helps keep the project on pace. And as far as, further, we have a much better handle on the project now than we did, some months ago. We've had all of our consultants engaged. We really got a clearer picture of what's involved here. I think we've got a more accurate budget. So all those things give us a lot of confidence to keep moving forward, but would be really looking forward to the city partnering with us on this as they have so far. Yeah.
I appreciate all that. And again, I'm not sure what I think about this, just because I think, to me, the most compelling thing that you said is that you're cash flow is not what it was a year ago either. And that's both reassuring and alarming at the same time. I certainly understand why it's not, but on the other hand, as a council member, I have to be aware of the long-term viability of this project. So I have one more question for Mr. Sullivan, if he's still, yes, I see him still on. Mr. Sullivan, at this point in time, is this, if we do not approve this tonight, and how do I want to phrase this question? If we do not approve this tonight, is the developer still legally obligated or obligated per the existing agreements that we have with the developer, still legally obligated to continue the project as we've already laid out?
Nice question, council member. Yes, they have some legal obligations to us, but I think that your funding of this is an important show of the city's continuing commitment to the project. And as Mr. Vostris said, it's going to affect the timeline on which they're able to undertake some of their obligations.
Indeed, indeed. I just wanted to make sure that I understood the parameters of the situation. And actually, I do have one more question for Ms. Hoffman and her team. Knowing how tight the city's budget is going forward, and of course this election that we just went through did provide some relief going forward, is this money that we can spare out of our budget at this point in time?
Thank you, Councilmember Law Evans. We have budgeted it for the 2021 budget upon council approval.
It's council priority.
Right, it's a council priority. Thank you, Mr. Stanbridge. I am unsure as where I want to go with this, but all my questions have now been answered. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Councilmember Jazerski.
Thank you, Mayor. So without turning this into too much of a Kevin Stanbridge love fest today, I do want to reiterate what's already been stated, that I really do appreciate all the work and the energy that you put into everything in Broomfield, but particularly this project. Like I could say one of my first memories of being on city council was actually taking the tour of Larimer Square with Joe. I think that was unfortunately, it was about 5 years ago or so, maybe more than 5 years ago. Having said that, I'm happy that we're here today, and I'm happy that the project is moving forward, although it seems like sometimes at a very incremental, inch by inch pace. But it sounds like we're finally getting to a place that we're gonna start seeing some real tangible results. So I think that's awesome, and I'm excited to hear that. Couple of quick things. I know this was mentioned, and I'll keep reiterating this. I know I think either Joe or you, Tim, mentioned this. And it was the lake, and I understand why this may be a little bit for the reason for the cost overruns we're seeing. But I do agree that that's an indispensable part of this project. It will be that placemaking experience that's been mentioned, and I totally agree with that 100%. I think it will be the magnet that draws people down to this location. So I think we want to make sure we're always continuing with that vision. And with the overruns, that did catch my eye as well. I know you've mentioned this a couple of times, Joe. So I'm with you on that. These are reimbursable costs. So I understand that the city's going to be asked to put some additional money in. I know you guys are putting in a lot of money into this project, but ultimately, I think we're all going to hope that it's successful. And if it is successful, you guys are going to get your money back. We're going to get our money back, and everyone's going to be we'll be happy, and we'll have a lot of citizens that are happy as well. I hope. So I think that's great. I am excited about this, and I really do, hope that we approve this tonight. I think we will. And ultimately, I hope we're able to break ground on this within the next couple of years before I'm off of city council. I want to be able to go to a party. Let's keep moving forward. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Castriota.
Thank you, Mayor. And I definitely support this. And I have to thank Mr. Stanbridge as well for his vision and perseverance and commitment to this vibrant touchstone of our community. It's going to bring such a new destination and a meeting place. And I'll never forget when you told me how you envision like the Grand Central Market in Los Angeles. When you walk into that place and it opens up, it's just transformative. And I promise you that I will continue to push this through. And I had an idea to commemorate the new retaining wall with a plaque, the Stanbridge Wall. Just an idea. Thank you, guys.
Councilmember Lindstedt.
Thank you, Mayor. I fully intend to support this tonight. I think it's important for us to keep our commitment to this project going and to keep it on time. You know, this is the community's been demanding this for a long time, and I am just so excited to see it moving forward. So I appreciate everyone's candor and honesty when it comes to this project, and I look forward to working on this as it moves forward, and hopefully by the time I'm off council in quite a while, we'll see something built. So and I think to Mayor Pro Tem Castiada's comment, I think we can find someplace a little bit better than a wall for a plaque for Mr. Stanbridge. So I think we should make sure that we have that discussion in the future. But thank you all. I am just so excited about seeing this project move forward. So I really appreciate your time and all the efforts that have gone into this.
Okay. I had a question. So the 60,500, why does council have to approve that? Just simply because it's such a visible project?
That's correct, Mayor.
Okay. And I guess I'll just want to make the comments too, that I'm glad to hear that it's moving forward. I'm glad to hear that it's, the suburban areas, I guess for maybe obvious reasons, are getting more interest from the investment community. And I guess my last comment will be that, having watched this, from afar before and then gone through the concept review, I understand that the water feature is a tough thing to design. I mean, that's been made clear to me from day one. And what I understood was that city council and the public really wants the water feature. And so the downside is that it's a little trickier to do than maybe you thought it was. I'll provide that comment. So let's go to resolution number 2020-245, and this is for the retaining wall. And so it's for the 60,500. So will the clerk please read proposed resolution number 2020-245 by title?
Resolution number 2020-245, authorizing and approving construction services from Keller America, Inc. for retaining wall repairs at the future Broomfield Town Square site on East First Avenue.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that resolution number 2020-245 be adopted.
Second.
Councilmember Schaaf.
Sorry, second.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Anderson,
Yes.
Castriata,
Yes.
Broom, Hinkle,
Yes.
Jezierski,
Yes.
Law Evans,
Yes.
Lim,
Yes.
Lindstedt,
Yes.
Schaaf,
Yes.
Tessier.
Yes.
It passes unanimously. So let's move to proposed resolution number 2020-263. And I would point out that this is for the funding, and it is an IGA, and it requires it'll require 2/3 of the council, so it'll require 7 votes to pass. Will the clerk please read proposed resolution number 2020-263 by title?
Resolution number 2020-263, authorizing and approving a supplemental cost sharing agreement by and between the Broomfield Urban Renewal Authority, the City and County of Broomfield, and Broomfield Town Square Alliance LLC for design and engineering expenses.
Councilmember Tessier.
Thank you. I move that resolution number 2020-263 be adopted.
Councilmember Schaaf.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Castriata,
Yes.
Groom, Hinkle,
Here. Oh, sorry, yes, sorry.
Kuzinski,
Yes.
Law Evans,
With reservations,
Law
yes.
Lim,
Yes.
Lindstedt,
Yes.
Schaff,
Yes.
Tessier,
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Councilmember Law Evans, will you confirm that you said yes?
Yes, I'll confirm that I said yes.
Okay, because I didn't hear you, and so, okay, it passes unanimously. And last is the authority's consideration of proposed resolution number 2020-264-UR. Oh, well, the clerk, I have a line here I didn't read. Will the clerk please read proposed resolution 2020-264-UR by title?
Resolution number 2020-264-UR, authorizing and approving a supplemental cost-sharing agreement by and between the Broomfield Urban Renewal Authority, the City and County of Broomfield, and the Broomfield Town Square Alliance LLC for design and engineering expenses.
Authority member Schaff.
Thank you, Chair. I move that resolution number 2020-264-UR be adopted.
Board member Lindstedt.
Second.
Any further discussion? Councilmember Evans, did you have something you wanted to say? Okay.
Yes, thank you. I guess I just want to state again, let's not put any more city money on the line here. This is it as far as I'm concerned. We keep doing this, and this is it as far as I'm concerned. Thank you.
Thank you. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Hinkle,
Yes.
Kuzinski,
Yes.
Law Evans,
Yes.
Lim,
Yes.
Lindstedt,
Yes.
Schaff,
Yes.
Tessier,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Castriata.
Yes.
It passes unanimously. Thank you, gentlemen, for your efforts again, Joe and Tim, and Kevin, for you too, buddy. So let's move on to council consideration of proposed resolution number 2020-256, appointing the board of directors of the Palisade North Metro District. Council has a copy of the agenda memorandum, which staff will summarize.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So it is the Kevin Stanbridge show this evening. We thought we would just load up every agenda item to make sure that Kevin knew how much we valued and appreciated him. I wanted to say just quickly before we go into this, Kevin hates it when I do this, of course, but this morning, as soon as I walked into the office, he couldn't wait to pull me back to his office to show me that you could actually see his desk. So literally, it's the first time he has his computer and his keyboard and 3 little piles. And literally between he and Charlie Ozaki, you couldn't see there any surface area. Even if you put a new desk in one of their offices, it would be filled up within moments. And so he said he did it for me because of my OCD. I have to have everything just high and tight and neat. And so it only took him 25 years, but it was a pretty thrilling moment for him to be able to see the wood on his desk today. So with that,
I will just share, it's a very ugly desk, but it has city money to replace it, so I had to camouflage it somehow.
Yeah, there you go.
It worked. Thank you. Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members, we have in front of you a request which essentially corrects an oversight that was on the part of the Palisade Park North Metropolitan District Number 1. The Palisade Park North Metropolitan District Number 1 is in the northern area of the city, north of the Palisade neighborhood. It's one of about 3 neighborhoods you've approved as you go up Huron Street, again, north of Highway 7. The board unintentionally provided to the Homeowners Association a piece of property which allowed the current board members to qualify as electors and their ability to serve as board members. When that was discovered, the Metropolitan District went to the Homeowners Association and that to whom the land had been mistakenly granted. And as I understand it, the Homeowners Association agreed very quickly to provide that land back to the district, which would allow the current board members to reestablish their terms and make the important decisions over the next few months for the district. So with that, as we worked with the district in this request, we did request that the district had said that they will schedule an election within the next 6 months for the residents and property owners within the district to elect new board members. They agreed that they would affirmatively distribute to all the eligible voters and board members in the area when that election will be and what a resident would do or a property owner to place their names on the ballot for the election in the spring to be elected to the board of directors for the Metropolitan District. And so your action, if you were to approve it, would, by approving the resolution, would reappoint the former board members, but with the understanding that they will schedule an election within 6 months, and they will inform all residents, if they are interested, how they can run for a board position. That concludes my remarks. We have Megan Becker, the bond counsel for the district, or excuse me, not bond counsel, legal counsel for the district, and Garrett Baum, one of the board members, to answer any questions you may have. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Let's go to public comments. If there's anyone who would like to be heard, please press *3. State your first and last name and neighborhood for the record. I'm not, CRL is pretty quiet tonight, so we'll go ahead and move on to city council members. Any questions or comments from city council, raise your hand and you'll be identified, called upon. Councilmember Tessier.
Thanks. I just have a quick question. If someone could kind of share with me what would that notifying the public and the election look like for appointing new members?
Councilmember Tessier, I think Ms. Becker would be most appropriate to answer that question for a legal counsel for the district. Megan, are you? Great, thanks.
I am. I can only see some of you, so hopefully you can hear me. Give me a thumbs up. Are we good? Great, thank you. So statutorily, and the election is actually required statutorily. And so it must be held within 6 months of the appointment. Statutorily, the notice is purely via publication, but we have committed to give notice to the property owners in an alternative way so that they understand that that's available.
Great, thank you.
Councilmember Jezierski.
I'd like to hear some speeches or position statements from the proposed board members. I'm just kidding, I have nothing.
So next is council's consideration of proposed resolution number 2020-256. Will the clerk please read proposed resolution number 2020-256 by title?
Resolution number 20.
Mayor Pro Tem, did you want to say something first, or? Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Resolution number 2020-256, appointing the Board of Directors of the Palisade Park North Metropolitan District Number 1, City and County of Broomfield, State of Colorado.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I just put my hand up early. I move that resolution number 2020-256 be adopted.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Councilmember Zazersky seconded. Any further discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Jazersky,
Yes.
Law Evans,
Yes.
Lim,
Yes.
Lindstedt,
Yes.
Schaff,
Yes.
Tessier,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Castriata,
Yes.
Hinkle.
Yes.
Okay, it passes unanimously. It seems to me so we're on 11C. It seems to me that that's going to take 10, 15 minutes. Let's go ahead and take our break right now and come back at 8:06, and which is 10 minutes from now. So let's take a 10-minute break. Thank you.
The Access Live event is in music hold.
Okay, let's go ahead and get started.
All right, coming off music hold in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Music hold ended.
Welcome back. Next is council consideration of proposed resolution number 2020-262, authorizing and approving an IGA established in the Rocky Mountain Metropolitan Airport Community Noise Roundtable, supporting adoption of the proposed bylaws and appointing representatives to serve on the Roundtable's board. Council has a copy of the agenda memorandum, which staff will summarize.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Once again, Kevin Stanbridge will walk us through this item. Kevin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. I have in front of you, as Mayor Quinn noted, resolution to approve intergovernmental agreement forming the Rocky Mountain Metropolitan Airport Community Noise Roundtable. The resolution also suggests that you approve the bylaws of the roundtable. And lastly, we're asking that you can, if possible, appoint a primary and an alternate to the board. The roundtable was prompted in large part, I believe, based on actions by the city of Louisville and the town of Superior, who did a noise analysis and really cataloged and identified and analyzed the complaints that they had gotten from their community over the past few years from overflight, from airplane noise. We do, when you look at the heat map of where the complaints come from, they do come primarily from the northwest edge of the primary runway at Rocky Mountain Metropolitan Airport. So with that work, Jefferson County, Boulder County, Superior, Louisville, Westminster, Arvada, and Broomfield came up with the proposed intergovernmental agreement and bylaws for the roundtable. If the city and county were to approve, the request is that each community contribute $3,600 per year, and that money will go towards facilitation and subject matter experts to address the issues as they come up. And it's worth noting, as you see in the intergovernmental agreement and the bylaws, it's very clear that the intent of the roundtable is to provide recommendations, firstly to the Rocky Mountain Metropolitan Airport, and secondly to the FAA, Federal Aviation Administration, as the Rocky Mountain Metropolitan Airport has accepted many federal funds for improvement to the airport. The airport follows under the regulatory framework of the FAA. And again, just to note, the Community Roundtable does not have any specific legal authority. That said, I think the communities are very optimistic, and it is encouraging and refreshing to see the positive efforts by Jefferson County to involve communities in the discussion about the airport noise. With that, I'll just note on the primary and alternate board members, the IGA and bylaws say that it may be either or combination of elected officials and or staff. So, Mr. Mayor, complete the staff report, and we're available for any questions you might. Oh, one last thing is the intent is to get this group roundtable meeting in very early January to get started and start to identify and make suggestions for mitigating solutions. So that does conclude the presentation, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comments are next. If there's anyone who would like to be heard, please press *3. State your name, first name and last name and neighborhood for the record. I'm noting nobody in the queue. So we'll go to council member questions or comments next. Does any member of council have a comment or question? Councilmember Lindstedt.
Thank you, Mayor. I think this is well-intentioned. I have been really vocal in my concerns about the actions of our northern neighbors in regard to the airport. I really am worried that if there was a push to change the flight patterns, it could have a negative impact on Southern Broomfield and Jefferson County. Well, I understand the concerns. I really, a lot of these communities were built and a lot of these developments were built well after the airport was there. And I would hate to see changes impact older neighborhoods that were existed before the airport. So I get really, really nervous about this whole idea, because I don't know that at the end of the day, some of the results that our neighboring communities want will be in the best interest of Broomfield. So I am nervous about this. I look forward to hearing what my colleagues have to say. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure that this will be the best thing for Skystone or the southern end of town. So I appreciate the time, Mayor.
Councilmember Henkel. You're muted, Heidi.
Sorry. Better being unmuted when you need to be muted, I guess. Thank you. I was just reading through this, and I was just trying to envision what this will look like. I think it is, like Councilmember Lindstedt said, well-intentioned, and I'm just trying to envision what this will exactly look like. So it looks like there's representation from all these different counties, correct? Council members, right, within this?
Councilmember Hinkle, yes, they're Boulder County, Jefferson County, and Broomfield City and County, so all the surrounding counties.
And so.
And the individual.
And then will we have any citizens on this board as well?
Not directly appointed. There are provisions that citizens and citizen groups may participate in the discussions, but they would not have an official seat at the table.
Okay, but they could bring in experts as needed, is that right?
That is the intent, Councilmember Hinkle, yes.
Okay, I want the people to be able to say and have input, and then also give direction as well, and then have some sort of expertise in the room as well. So I would like to see that for sure. And I was just curious about the budget approval. Where did that number come from as to how much we're paying for each county? And then if the budget approval is in October, November, what are they going to be, knowing what they're supposed to be spending on this 2021 through the fall? I didn't quite understand the budget.
Yeah, and Councilmember Hinkle, there was an estimate made that if they meet once a month, what it would cost on an hourly basis to have a facilitator there and to have the facilitator do the necessary preparatory work. And then there was some limited money. Somebody who's familiar with FAA regulations and rules who can inform the committee, because the general consensus was that information can't come from employees of the Rocky Mountain Metropolitan Airport. It really ought to come from a third party, and so that was the intent of that. I will make one other comment that I think this will be formed whether we participate or not, and I would advocate that it's best to have a seat at the table than not be at the table at all. And that's kind of the perspective we've taken as we've gone along, because we know how critical the airport is to the local economy in Broomfield, and the number of people who have jobs out at the airport, that it's very critical.
For sure. And then what was the decision to have Jefferson County hold the money, or be
yeah, because it's their airport, you know, there's some cost to it. They would not charge back this roundtable for that. So they were willing to do that, but the decisions on spending would be made by the full roundtable, not individually by Jefferson County.
Yeah. Okay, I just wanted to get some clarity and kind of envision what it would look like, and just knowing, you know, what they're spending the money on from January through October, and if we could, you know, see some sort of budget, I guess, maybe starting in January or something, not have to wait till October, November. That'd be helpful.
Sure. The board member, your appointee, could bring that information back to council. We would expect that.
Councilmember Tessier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I totally appreciate being at the table. And I'm wondering who from the airport is going to be at the table, and who from like maybe the school that the pilots are learning from is going to be at the table. And, you know, I want to reiterate that I've had one generic email that was sent to us by a resident in Skystone, and it was a sign-on kind of email, the generic email we get from like other communities. And that was the only complaint that Broomfield that I received. And I don't like it. I don't like it at all. And I feel like there is, I don't know. I want to learn more about it. I want to be at the table, but I want to make sure all sides are at the table, and it's not just a group of public officials getting together because they don't like the sound and the noise. I mean, so that's where I'm coming from. I have some reservations about this as well. I talked to some of the pilots there. They're really concerned. These are, you know, our future. They are, and I think it's just a phenomenal program that they have there. It's a huge opportunity for our pilots, and I get why we want to be at the table to ensure, but I want to make sure that all the players that need to be at the table are at the table. So there's like, so there's discussion and there's back and forth that can be answered right then and there.
And Councilmember Tessier, the IGA makes provisions for additional roundtable participants. And it talks about ex officio participants and community participants are not members and they don't have voting rights, but they are able to participate. And it says ex officio participants shall include staff from the airport, state and federal government agencies with a role in aviation, noise, or other regulatory affairs. And community participants shall include homeowners associations, other community organizations, and individuals that desire to participate in the roundtable. So it is meant to be inclusive. And I will share just from the staff discussions, there have been kind of Broomfield, Westminster, and Arvada, and to some degree Jefferson County, have not, for the most part, received the complaints that Superior and Louisville have. And then you have Louisville, Superior, and the Boulder County. So it kind of lines up that way with where it'll go. But in the end, this is a recommending entity to the FAA. They don't have any unique decision-making authority on their own. And the FAA is all about preserving airspace and, you know, preserving the industry. So I think there are a lot of competing forces that hopefully will come to some balance as this group moves forward.
Okay, I appreciate that, and you know, while I'm hesitant, I do understand that I think being at the table is probably more important than not being there, which I don't know, but I mean, I know I don't have time to be on it. I don't know if any other council members have, you know, can squeeze out any more time. I am really concerned about this. And while I realize that there's no legal authority, it does provide an opportunity for citizens to voice their concerns. But again, one Broomfield resident, one.
Councilmember Schaaf.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, for many years now, the communities surrounding the Rocky Mountain Metropolitan Airport have raised concerns over the noise being generated from the airport. Some of these community members are from Broomfield. I've heard from them, you know, especially during this spring months is when I get phone calls and ask what's going on at the airport. And many of them are from our surrounding communities, and we have gotten emails from them. So this is a regional airport, and it is a regional concern as well. The facts remain, and they have data to show this, that the amount of flights have increased, and the flight path has continued, you know, over these residences. So there are issues there, and they've continued to work with this. In my conversations with other regional elected officials, there have been attempts to work with Rocky Mountain Airport, but there haven't been really any good remedies for the affected communities and residents. They've had conversations with our congressional delegation in these conversations, and again, it really hasn't gone anywhere. This roundtable is that next step. The FAA and the airport have recommended this to get everybody in the area on board to have a bigger conversation. Let's see, we do have residents that are affected, and we also do have businesses that are potentially affected by these conversations as well. There was a similar roundtable convened near the Centennial Airport years ago. So we aren't, in Colorado, we aren't immune to having these conversations, and it's important that these conversations do include all of the neighboring municipalities around the airports. I believe that Broomfield needs to be at this roundtable for these conversations. as they affect us. And I do hope that my fellow council members will support this IGA. And as someone that has been involved in these issues and conversations with Broomfield staff and surrounding communities, as well as elected officials, I would appreciate your support for myself to represent Broomfield as one of the board members on this roundtable. Thank you.
Councilmember Jezierski.
Thank you. You know, I'm going to agree with a lot with what Councilmember Sheff just mentioned. I think this is important that we're involved in this group. I think it, you know, does affect Broomfield residents now, and it certainly can affect Broomfield residents even more in the future, depending on where things go. And I will say, you know, I'm in the southern area, you know, almost as far south as Broomfield as you can get, and I did, you know, Councilmember Tessier, receive a lot of complaints this year, and I think a lot of it did have to do with the fire tanker, so it may be more of a seasonal thing for the folks in my area. But I mean, they were basically going right over my house multiple times a day throughout the summer and early fall. So I mean, that is what it is, and that was for a good reason. But yeah, I would say that I mean it is an issue now for Broomfield, and I think it will continue to be so in the future. And it is important to be at the table because if we're not at the table, you know, decisions are, well, and you hear not any concrete decisions, but, you know, recommendations are going to be made without our input. So whether or not we have a minority voice or a majority voice, well, at least if we're there, we will have a voice. So, and I totally get your concerns about having other players too, but if we're not there, then we can't even ensure that other players get there. So I think we need to be on that table, at that table, one way or the other. And I think the cost is, you know, fairly low at this point. $3,600 is less than I'm pretty sure we pay for any other multi-community groups like this. So I'm 100% in support of this, and it's an issue that's important to me as well. So along with the Councilmember Sheff, I wouldn't mind being involved in this as a board member as well.
Councilmember Law Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So when I was really little, like 4 or 5, my dad actually owned a light plane, a Cessna, and flew out of, then it was Jefferson County Airport, Jeffco. And that's how I've always thought of it. The tower was in that area. The tower was in a different location than it is now. And there was nothing around the airport. There was, I have pictures of driving out Highway 128 and looking northwest or in that direction where these flights are taking off now. And there was nothing out there in what is now Interlochen. It was cow pasture, a lot of Superior, a lot of Louisville. There was just simply nothing there. All that has grown up since the airport was put in place. So I certainly understand how annoying noise can be. And Councilmember Jezierski brought up the slurry bombers, the fire tankers that absolutely have been going right over Ward 1, all of Ward 1. It's not just your house either, Stan, it's all of us. But I think it's a pretty small price to pay to try and put some of these fires out for some of us to have a little bit of noise difficulty. I will say that the slurry bomber facility has been there since the Forest Service put that there since the beginning of the airport. It's always been, as a little kid, Dad would take us up there and watch the vintage World War II aircraft that they used at that point in time as slurry bombers, watch them get loaded with the pink slurry, take off, and then fly off to whatever fires. So while I absolutely understand that noise can be a terrible issue, the airport has been there first, and these folks, I agree with Councilmember Tessier and Councilmember Lindstedt's concerns. A lot of these folks bought houses that were built decades after the airport was built. And while noise isn't fun, if you move to the airport, I think it's really to be expected. So I do support that. Something we definitely want a seat at the table, but I would like to make sure that, as Councilmember Lindstedt said so eloquently, we don't have Broomfield come out on the short end here. I rather doubt it, given that, as Mr. Stanbridge said, the FAA is the ultimate authority, plus knowing where the prevailing winds come from in this part of the world. There are very few different directions where you can take off on in a general sense. That's why the runways are where they are. So I appreciate that we really need to have a seat at the table. And as has already been stated, I think I would be happy to serve on this board as well, or in addition to, or instead of, or whatever, because I do think the historical context is important in this case, that the airport has been a huge economic driver for Broomfield for a long time, long before the mall was built and all that, and that the airport has been there a long, long time. I flew out, I can show you pictures of Dad's Cessna. He was so proud of that. And just as an aside, my dad's 93 now. He can't see very well, but when we were having the fires, just as he used to take me up, drive up there to the end of the runway and watch the slurry bombers take off, I took him up there the other day, about a month ago, and we had a great time. We really did. It was a lot of good memories. So, at any rate, I'm happy to serve on this as well. Would love to hear more about it. Thank you.
Councilmember Lim.
Since my background is as a community participant, my attention went there to section 3.1.2 that Mr. Stanbridge was referring to. So I was at least encouraged that the roundtable seemed very open in a broad sense to community participation. It's kind of loosely defined for whoever wants to apply and designate a representative. So I was just wondering, if we're, besides our own representatives, would there be anything that Broomfield would want to do to make sure this opportunity for community participation would be known to residents? I mean, would we be able to promote it in some way to let people know?
I think, Councilmember Lim, that's certainly something we could do, and something I think responsibly that we would do, is just notify the neighborhoods of what's going on and share with them the IGA, and if they want to participate, certainly they'd be welcome to.
Okay,
so
great.
we can let them know.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you. After listening to this entire discussion here, I absolutely agree that we do want a seat at this table, especially if we're talking about changing routes or anything else. Like we definitely want our voices heard. I can say that way up here on the north side of Broomfield that, this noise is not an issue up here, but we have suffered from other noise. And the residents, when they start to complain about the noise, I understand that some things, you can't predict the future. Some things may have been there in the beginning, but they may have gotten intensified over time. So I definitely want whoever sits on this board to absolutely recognize that the noise, to try to address it from the standpoint that we really do want to relieve the noise and not just give a historical explanation for why it's there, to do what we can to protect these residents. Let's be on the board and let's have somebody who's there to do their best to reduce noise impacts to our community. Thank you.
Councilmember Hinkle, second round.
Sorry, all this just occurred to me as far as a communication point. Kevin, I just want to make sure that if we have this board too, that we have a shared resource of where people can complain. And so that way we all know what's being complained about and from who, versus them emailing us separately. And then we get the emails and then we send it back to the crew, So like I would love to have a one-stop shop sort of complaint line that goes right directly to where it needs to go, if that makes sense. We could still keep up on it and keep abreast of what the complaints are. It could be from people who live in Broomfield. But I think that would be, important to have that shared space amongst, I don't know what that would look like, but yeah.
Councilmember Hinkle, this is Kevin. So yes, the Rocky Mountain metropolitan area has a fairly robust section on their webpage for residents to make complaints or express their concerns about individual aircraft that may be flying especially low, making noise and stuff like that. I think that if the roundtable were created, that information would be shared with the roundtable on a regular basis. It's all public record, and certainly we can, use that to inform council on what's going on there, and what's the basis for the discussion, how bad are the complaints, and where are they coming from. So I think a lot of that information is there, and if council we decide to join, we talked about David Allen, Public Works Director, helping support whatever council members sat on the roundtable, and make sure that we can get that information and distribute it around to council and the community as we see appropriate, or as you see appropriate.
Okay, all right, that's helpful. I haven't known of that, and I just read complaints on Nextdoor, and I just explain that, hey, we have a lot of fires going on, and that's, what's been happening. So it's nice to know that we have that. It'd be nice to see that as a clear process, kind of like we can see in the Broomfield Voice, where everyone can see it. So that's helpful to know. Thank you.
Councilmember Lindstedt.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to reiterate, when I was working in the state legislature, I spent about 3 years dealing with constituent issues regarding this issue, and I am from Boulder County, those issues were, and I am very skeptical of the motivations of this group. If we do choose to join this group, I will be supporting Councilmember Law Evans to be our member. There's a lot of jobs. We have hotels, we have restaurants. There's a lot of economic activity down here from this airport, and I am very, very skeptical. I don't know if I'm going to support this agreement, but it's yeah. I just can't overstate how worried this whole thing makes me. So I appreciate the time, Mayor.
Okay, I just want to make a couple of comments. I wasn't aware of the issues out there until, and I think this is where Councilmember Schaaf's talking about. When we went to DC during that period of time when COVID was becoming a reality, that the members of the US 36 MCC met with the FAA, and I was curious about why they met with the FAA. I think Mayor Stoltzman is one of the chief people from Louisville, on this issue. So certainly having somebody on the board. Keep an eye on this. I think we need to have a seat at the table, to say the least. I will make one other comment that I got invited to the police and fire golf tournament at Omni, and I hadn't been there for 20 years. It's pretty loud there. There's a lot of activity, and maybe that was just at 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning. There was a lot of activity into the flight school. So it's. It may not be an issue in Broomfield, but it's an issue in Louisville and Boulder County, I suspect. And and then I wanted to ask one other question to City Manager Hoffman. I thought I had heard, and you had as well, that they're talking about commercial activity at that airport.
Yes, sir. So Kevin and I had met with Don Davis, who is the county administrator in Jefferson County, and Paul Anstead. Did I get that last name right? He's the manager of the airport. And so they had requested a sit down, which we met with them. They had indicated, to Councilmember Tessier's point about the smaller mom and pop training centers, if you will. And so we've had enough experience now to where when someone identifies a noise, when a resident identifies a noise, we can tell you whether it's the general aircraft or if in fact it's the teaching aircraft, because it's again, depending upon where you come down with this issue, but it's the touch and goes. So it's the throttle and then the throttle back, the throttle forward and then the throttle back. The difference of the direction that they're going, when we were talking about those smaller mom and pops, again, it was a factual about where the noise is generated, the number of planes that are in the air. One of the reasons that they go over the Omni, Mayor, is because it's not high residential. It is in fact a golf course, so by design. But part of the part of that conversation was they're in communication with 2 commercial airlines. And so again, I don't want to venture to guess to what extent those conversations are, but it's clear that they are moving down the road to commercializing that airport. And that, of course, would mean less time for those smaller mom and pop shops. So there's just a whole host of issues that we will be acknowledging and dealing with as we move forward. The congressional delegation, Congressman Joe Neguse is well versed with the Rocky Mountain Airport and those issues. The congressional delegation is, they are in communication with the FAA or were prior COVID. I don't know what that circumstance is right now, but suffices to say they were deeply engaged in those conversations and what next steps were. And this is the FAA's, and I'm hesitating not because I'm trying to be coy or politically correct. This is the FAA's attempt to check that box, to have a roundtable, to be able to say, as we move forward on any additional activities, we do have an organization that is primarily based of the municipalities and surrounding, and we not have asked their permission, but have given them a heads up on what's next. So, and I'm sure Councilmember Lindstedt can speak more to, from a legislative perspective, what those conversations have been with the FAA.
So I mean, the answer is that they are contemplating, they would like to do commercial aircraft.
I think it's further along than contemplating it, Mayor.
Okay, fair enough. So Councilmember Law Evans.
Thank you. I just, I think I understand where you're heading with your line of questioning, but is there then, based on what Manager Hoffman just said, is there then a possibility that this group could mutate into a larger roundtable than just on noise issues?
Kevin?
That would always be, the bylaws or excuse me, the IGA is fairly specific on what the group would do, but there's certainly nothing that would prevent or preclude the group in the future of recommending modifications in scope back to the member governments and amending the IGA. So certainly it's always a possibility.
In that case, I think it's absolutely critical that we have a seat at this table.
Which is what, yeah. So yes, and I'll point out it's owned by Jefferson County. Just making a comment. So let's go ahead and move to Council's consideration of resolution number 2020-262, which is an intergovernmental agreement and it requires an affirmative vote of 2/3 of the entire council. So will the clerk please read proposed resolution number 2020-262 by title?
Point of order, Mayor.
Yeah.
Section 3 of the resolution provides for your appointment, the City Council's appointment of the primary representative and the alternate to the committee.
Right, and I was going to do this first, so we authorized this part, and then I was going to ask for nominations for the committee. Okay. I was planning on doing that. Seemed to me that we should approve this resolution first, and then we'll appoint the members of the committee. Okay, but I'm with you. I understand. Will the clerk please read proposed resolution number 2020-262 by title?
Resolution number 2020-262, authorizing and approving an intergovernmental agreement establishing the Rocky Mountain Metropolitan Airport Community Noise Roundtable, supporting adoption of proposed bylaws and appointing a primary and alternate representative to serve on the roundtable's board.
Councilmember Schaaf.
I move that resolution number 2020-262 be adopted.
Councilmember Henkel.
Second.
Is there any other discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Law Evans,
Yes.
Lim,
Yes.
Lindstedt,
With great hesitation, yes.
But that's a yes.
Schaaf,
Yes.
Tessier,
Yes.
Anderson,
I don't know if you want to send that to Sharon. That's where the complaints.
Castriata,
Yes.
Hinkle,
Yes.
Jezerski.
Yes.
Okay, it passes unanimously. So what I was going to do right now is I was going to take, because we had two people put their name forward, I was going to take a nomination. Who's the third one put their name forward? Sharon?
Councilmember Schaaf and Councilmember Law Evans, and did
I heard
Councilmember
Stan too.
Jezerski?
That's
Okay.
right, Stan did too. So what I was going to do, following our normal process, was take a nomination, have the nominations, and then this is one where, because we don't have paper ballots, we would probably have to vote, unless somebody can think of something else to do, have to vote, on a Zoom type vote. So are there any nominations? Councilmember Law Evans, were you going to say something different, or? No,
I was going to make a nomination.
Okay, good.
Okay, so given that I only have a year left on council, and after thinking about it, I would like to nominate Councilmember Jezerski for this, and Ward 1 will be well served by that. Thank you.
Councilmember Castriota.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to nominate Councilmember Schaaf.
Are there any other nominations? I guess what we're going to do, I mean, as awkward as it's going to be, unless somebody's got a better idea, we'll call a roll call, and you'll say either Schaaf or Jezerski, and we'll keep tabs
I'm okay
out.
if Devin wants to rock, paper, scissors it.
We could do.
I really don't care.
I have a question. So there's an appointment and an alternate, right?
Yeah, and I was going to suggest that whoever gets the appointment, the other person would become the alternate. Okay. So yes, I'm with you. So let's go ahead and call the roll and state whether, and this is for the person who will be our representative, and we'll go ahead and then have a vote on the person who's going to be the alternate. So call the roll.
Lim,
Schaaf.
Lindstedt,
Jezerski.
Schaaf,
Jeff.
Tessier,
Jezerski.
Anderson,
Schaaf,
Castriata,
Schaaf.
Hinkle,
It really does not matter to me, guys, but I will throw in Jezerski.
Jezerski.
Can you give me a minute to think about this?
Did you
Law
vote?
Evans,
Jezerski.
Okay, so
Jezerski, did you vote? Did you say him? Okay.
So it's 63 for Jezerski, and then can we just go ahead and name Schaaf, or do we need to vote on that as well, Sullivan? Sean.
Sorry, had to get unmuted there. I think you decided beforehand that the person who didn't get it would be appointed the alternate. So I don't think you need to do a vote.
Okay, so Councilmember Jezerski will be the official representative from Broomfield, and Councilmember Schaaf will be the alternate, and we will move on to item number 11D, which is the final item tonight before our executive session. And this is about an executive session it is council's consideration of a request for an executive session for legal advice and direction to negotiators regarding Extraction Oil and Gas Inc.'s bankruptcy. Council have a copy of the agenda memorandum, which staff will summarize.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Sean Sullivan will walk us through this item. We are social distancing, so generally if there's a hesitation now, it's because we're not sitting directly across the table from some of our, where we do the finger pointing thing. So Sean?
Thanks, Mayor and Mayor Pro Tem. I've requested that we have an executive session to discuss, get some advice from our legal counsel on the extraction bankruptcy and to get some direction for our negotiators regarding those issues. And so would appreciate if we could add this topic to our executive session that follows this meeting. Thank you.
Okay, we'll proceed with public comments. If there's anyone who would like to be heard, if so, please press *3, state your first and last name and your neighborhood for the record. I'm not noting anybody in the queue. Council comments are next. Does any member of council have a comment or a question? Request for an executive session requiring an affirmative vote of 2/3 of the quorum present. There, turn it over. Will the city and county attorney please read the recommended motion?
That an executive session be held on November 12th, 2020, after the conclusion of council special meeting for the purpose of legal advice and direction to negotiators regarding Extraction Oil and Gas Companies, Inc.'s bankruptcy as permitted by section 24(6), 4024B and E of the Colorado Revised Statutes.
And I don't think so. I mean, I think we have to have a motion. Will somebody make that motion?
So moved. Oh, sorry, I didn't raise my hand.
That's fine. So, is there a second? Councilmember Schaaf?
Second.
Okay. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Lindstedt,
Yes.
Schaaf,
Yes.
Tessier,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Castriata,
Yes.
Henkel,
Yes.
Jezierski,
Yes.
Law Evans,
Yes.
Lim.
Yes.
It passes unanimously. The city and county attorney report is next. Mr. Sullivan?
I don't have a report this evening, or Mayor.
And then we'll go with the city and county managers report. Ms. Hoffman?
I do not, thank you.
There was no legislative update. There was one item of business for the Broomfield Urban Renewal Authority that was heard concurrently with item 11A earlier this evening. Seeing there's no further business before the Broomfield Urban Renewal Authority, the meeting is adjourned. There is no business before the Arista Local Improvement District Board of Directors. Additionally, there are no special reports or requests for future action, including the items on this evening's agenda. Is there any other business to come before the council? I will make one comment that when we have our special session on December 10th, I think it is, we're going to truncate this. We're not required to go through all these items, and so we'll probably, like we did in March and April, make it smaller because we're having council meetings. So I just want, so when you see the agenda for the special meeting on December 10th, it will be shorter, and I think that I won't get much argument on that. So there be no, okay.
Mayor, I have a question.
What's that?
I don't have a meeting on the calendar for December 10th.
When is it, Jennifer?
It is December 10th.
Okay.
It's not on the council calendar yet.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So
it will be.
Okay.
Okay. So let's so point out to everybody that there is, if I recall, there's a separate connection for the executive session, which will begin in about 5 minutes. The meeting, there'll be no further business. The council meeting is adjourned. Council will move into an executive session under the separate connection details in 5 minutes. So see you all in 5 minutes.